All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over the MMA card for this Saturday. I was in attendance at the card this past weekend, and it was just craziness. Was by far the most electric environment of, I would say, any sporting event I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot. Nonetheless, this Saturday is not quite as electric of a card, both from a talent perspective and from a DFS perspective, but it's still offering 100K for first in the lottery, and it does offer a good opportunity to learn about how to play these types of contests. I think that this is a very, very instructive type of card, and I am going to probably go through each matchup to discuss how that all plays out. So remember what you're looking for in good GPP MMA plays is you want, if at all possible, a good inside the distance prop, meaning that you want a fight that rates to finish, right? Because those are the fights that score the most. The second thing that you would like, if you can get it, is high grappling upside, because wrestling and grappling upside is very conducive to DraftKings scoring. The other thing you would like are good, are good pricing, right? So if you have a fight where both guys are, say, 8,100 or both gals are 8,100 and it rates to finish, that's a really, really strong situation, because if a fight finishes, an $8,100 price tag is very likely to be in the optimal, or it's more likely than not, it's likely to be in the optimal. So if you can get a fight with good pricing, meaning 8,100 or something like that on both sides, and rating to finish, then you're in business. Also, what's good to find are high equity plays, like someone's just mispriced because, let's say that DraftKings priced the slate and then someone else kind of slid in as a replacement fighter after they couldn't replace the original fighter. You might get a fighter that was priced at pick'em that now all of a sudden is a 3-1 favorite, so you're getting immediate win equity there. And all of this, again, has to be factored in with respect to ownership and leverage and things like that. But as far as picking fights and fighters, those are really the basics. And the other thing that I think is really, really important is the concept of win condition. In other words, if you pick a fighter, you want for his win condition to be that which helps your lineups. In other words, you want the win condition of that fighter to be conducive to high scoring. So if you're picking, say, a 9,200 guy who is priced at 9,200 because he's just a huge favorite, but the way he's going to win is to grind out a decision, that's not a really good play. Okay. However, if you have a guy who's 9,200 and he's priced as a 3-1 favorite, and his win condition is such that he will win if he gets the guy to the mat a bunch of times, well, that's a really good win condition. So you want to play a guy like that. And likewise with underdogs, if you have two different 7,500s that you're looking at, and one of them, needs a long, drawn-out striking decision to win, he's not going to be preferred over the $7,500 guy who has grappling upside or is a finisher or something like that. So again, I'm not, to analyze DFS MMA, it's not really important to know who's going to win. In other words, yeah, I mean it is, but the odds are just pretty. I'm not good enough to replace my take of whether someone's going to win with that of Vegas's. I mean, if Vegas prices a guy at 3-1, I'm just going to presume that 75% of the time they're winning. But the question is, in that 75% of the time, how often do they score well enough? And if someone is only going to win 25% of the time, okay, that's not that great. But if, let's say, that 25% of the time he's always going to get a knockout, then that's really, really a strong play. Knowing that even though 75% of the time it's not going to work, but 25% of the time it does, I mean, you're really, really killing it. So that's probably the longest I've ever spent on actual fundamentals of DFS DFS MMA play. But I think it's really important to go back to this for those types of fundamentals. Now let's attack some of these fights with those kind of things in mind. So first of all, let's just go right from the first fight. So you'll see that the first fight, Daya Zhang and Kenny and Shuko, what does it have going for it? Well, let's talk about what it has going for it, and then we'll see if it's enough. So what it has going for it is pricing. You know, you have this $83 to $7,900 fighter. That's really, really strong. In other words, if you can get a win out of those guys with a good win condition or a good finishing upside or things like that, then these are fights that you really want to look at. So let's look a little deeper. Let's take a look at that inside the distance prop. And you'll see that it's about a pick 'em, whether it goes to a decision or not. You prefer to have a fight with a really, really good inside the distance prop, meaning like maybe like a 2-to-1 to go to the finish or something like that. But the fact that this fight has good pricing, okay, it allows me to be a little more forgiving with the inside the distance prop. I think that an $8,100 fight, which is pick 'em to go the distance, I think is worth targeting, because think of it this way. I mean, you have 4 options. You have Nchuko and Young, and you have Nchuko and Young go the distance, and Nchuko and Young do not go the distance. So let's say that 25% of the time, you know, if you play Nchuko, you're going to be happy because it's going to go the distance. You know, it's not going to go the distance, and you're going to win, right? Whereas 75% of the time, playing Nchuko is going to lose. And I think the same with Zhang. About 25% of the time you play him, you know, he's probably going to be in the optimal, but 25% of the time. So I think that you can play both of these guys, and it's not a smash play, but I think at least to start off, I think it's something that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Now, with respect to win conditions, I mean, neither one of them. Well, I shouldn't say that. Da Unjung, in his last fight, he took his opponent down like 7 times. And so his win condition is extremely strong. In other words, if he doesn't, he could score well even without a finish. Okay. So he has finishing upside, and he's also got grappling upside. Now, some have said that that's maybe an outlier, that his last performance. And I've also heard that, you know, Nchuko is extremely big, and he's a really good get-up game. So maybe Jung does not quite have the grappling upside, but I think that it's enough to make him kind of the lead. In other words, both these guys have the pricing. Both these guys are part of that inside the distance prop. But Jung has that extra, that grappling upside that I think makes him a stronger play. So for me, I would go, let's say you're going to go 100% of this fight, I would go 60% Young and 40% Nchuko, something like that. And again, like let's say you were going to go 80% of this fight, then again, you know, 60% of that you would want to go Young, and 40% of that you want to go Nchuko. And again, that's just my opinion on how to weight these guys based on the grappling upside. All right, there's no like quantitative way to come up with that. Okay, Alves against Diakese. So let's first look. Let's first look. Let's look at the pricing. The pricing is not great. In other words, there's an 8,700, 7,400. So it's not as if, you know, if either of the guys win, you're going to be in the optimal. If either of the guys finish, going to be in the optimal. So let's take a look at go a little bit deeper. The pricing isn't so great. Let's look at the inside the distance prop. The inside the distance prop is pretty poor also. It's a -150 favorite to go to the decision. So 2 out of 2 is 2 out of 2 negatives for this fight. And then if you want to look at if one guy that maybe has extreme win condition, being, you know, big upside for grappling or something like that, this doesn't exist qualitatively in this fight. So to me, this type of fight is one that, you know, with the exception of it, like if either guy was like 1% owned, whatever it is, I mean, that trumps all this. But I think this is a fight that's, you know, if you just do it by those check marks, it's a clear pass for me. Courtney Casey against Lyanna Jejua. The inside the distance prop first, terrible, right? It's a big favorite to not go to the decision. That's one thing. Second of all, you know, the pricing is such that Courtney Casey is 9,200 or 9,000 and Jejua is 7,000. And if neither one really, if this inside the distance prop is so poor, and neither one of these girls has particularly great grappling upside, I can't make the case for either of them because Casey is unlikely to pay off her 9K price tag given the small possibility of a finish and the lack of the grappling. And even Jejua, I mean, like she rates to win about 33% of the time, but even when she wins, it might not even be enough because she doesn't really have that grappling. So I think this is a very, very poor fight to target as well. Now, again, you are going to have to find some 7,400s to probably play, but I think we're going to find better ones as we go along. Okay, so Sean Woodson against Colin England. All right, so pricing is big favorite versus small face, big underdog. So as far as win conditions go, you're not getting a big bargain here with the pricing or anything like that. Let's take a look at the inside the distance prop. Again, I think it's pretty poor. I think it's $1.70 favorite to go to a decision. So a good amount of the time, this fight busts. So I think that Woodson, unless he's got the grappling, which doesn't seem like he does, it's not a great $9,200 price, $9,200 fighter. Now, again, if we come back to it and there's like no one else to play, obviously those win conditions, those win odds are very, very strong and it's very likely to win and get 70 points. But, I prefer to find fighters and fights with more upside than this. So for now, I mean, it looks as though we're really struggling for anything, right? We like the Jung and Shuko fight, both sides. And then we have basically 1, 2, 3 passes, right? Do we talk about the Jacasey fight? Yeah, it's the same thing. So we got 3 fights in a row, which I really don't like. Now we get to this one, a Baeza Chaos Williams. Let's just do our check marks again. Let's look at the pricing. Pricing is one that you're going to like because it's like 8,500, 7,700. So they're close enough that, you could probably target both fighters, if you get the good inside the distance props or things like that working in your favor. And you'll see when you look at this is a very, very strong fight because it's a -175 to not go to a decision. So it's favored to finish. Okay. And the good thing is that the finishing upside, does come from, I guess, more Chaos Williams. If you went like down to if you drill down here, you'll see that Williams wins by TKO is +240 and Baeza wins by TKO is +250. Considering that Baeza is a 140 favorite, a greater percentage of Chaos Williams wins are going to finish as opposed to Baeza's. But I think Baeza is a pretty strong play also. So the combination of the finishing upside and the pricing makes this a fight you want to go after. And as I just mentioned, the majority of the finishing upside comes from the Chaos Williams side, who is the underdog. So I would say that even though Baeza's is like 60% to win or maybe a little higher, I'd probably make this fight probably 50-50 between Chaos Williams and Miguel Baeza. I think that's really fair. And I think this is the second fight that you want to target. I mean, I think Chaos Williams, Baeza, Jia Jung, Kenny Shuko. So far, these are the 2 fights. All right, Anjia Lee against Cynthia Tavia. Now, this is interesting for other reasons. So first, again, let's look at the pricing. Tavia and Lee, awesome pricing, 8,200 and 8K. So, it's there for the taking. If you can find the right fighter and that fighter is going to win in a way that is conducive to scoring, then this is a fight you want to target that maybe both sides of. But let's just take a look a little deeper and let's take a look at some of these other metrics. So first of all, the inside the distance prop, unfortunately, as with most women fights, is extremely poor. It's a 3-to-1 favorite to go to a decision. So first of all, you would think that it's a bad fight to target. However, one of the fighters has an extreme win condition. So Cynthia Tavia is going, well, you would think she's going to go for takedowns. Anjia Lee's been taken down by the entire United States of America. And Cynthia Tavia is a really, really good wrestler. So you would think that would be her plan to take Anjia Lee down. So of the, minus 135 of the 55% of the time that she wins. You know, a good amount of those are going to be because she employed that game plan, which is conducive to drafting scoring. So Calvillo is an extremely good play here, you know, and Anjia Lee, on the other hand, is really not, because even though her pricing is good, her win condition is poor. You know, if she wins, she's not necessarily even going to make it to the optimal, where you think that if Calvillo wins, she's going to, you know, her upside score, her win score rates to be higher than Lee's win score. So I think Calvillo is a very, very strong player. Moises against Alvarez. Now this is a weird fight. So first of all, from a pricing perspective, you have a 9,000 and a 7,200. Is that what it is? Let's just take a look at it. Let's just take a look. Yeah, Alvarez is 7,200 and his opponent is 9K. And so we have to look and see what, you know, whether these win conditions are you know, and these inside the distance props are favorable to either of these guys, because pricing alone is not going to do it. And you'll see that the fight doesn't go to a decision is a little poor. It's minus 160 to go to a decision. Okay. However, I think that this fight is worth targeting because of the win condition situation. So from what I've researched from a qualitative perspective, you have two guys who are really good at jiu-jitsu, Alvarez and Moises. And as a matter of fact, Alvarez, he welcomes getting taken down to the mat because he has a lot of sneaky submission skills. And where Moises is a really good jiu-jitsu person as well, he'll be all too happy probably to take him to the ground. And his win condition is more take Alvarez to the ground and just keep pounding on him. And that is actually a really, really high upside drafting score. You know, you get control time, you get all those strikes on him on the ground and the takedown. You know, it's a very, very strong win condition. And yet, on the other hand, if Alvarez does in fact, you know, win, which he's supposed to do about, you know, what, 20, 30, you know, 25% of the time. I mean, he's got a bunch of submissions, and those types of scores, you know, whether it's the first round, second round, or third round for a $7,200 fighter is something that you're going to want. The chance that Alvarez wins and does not make the optimal is very slim as far as I'm concerned. So is he going to win? No, probably not. But that 20, 25% chance he does, I think is conducive to good scoring. So I think that this fight is worth keying as well. So Moises, good win condition. Alvarez, good win condition, regardless of the poor inside the distance prop. Son Yadong versus Julio Arce. Okay, so let's do our check boxes. Pricing. Is that this fight? Yeah, excellent pricing. Son Yadong, 8,400. Arce, 7,800. So if you can get good inside the distance props on these guys, you're going to, you know, or good win conditions, you're going to really want to go after this. So let's just take a look with Arce Yadong. Unfortunately, the inside the distance prop is poor. It's minus 200 to go to a decision. So that's really bad. And I mean, it's not really bad, but it's pretty bad. And then you don't have the big wrestling upside pretty much of either of these guys. So this fight to me is probably a borderline pass. I just don't see anything in the numbers that which would, you know, warrant me going for this. So I want to compare this one, for example, to the first fight we talked about, the Nchuko Young fight. What's the difference? So the inside the distance prop, this one's minus 150. Okay, goes to a decision versus 110. That's one difference. Whereas this one was minus 200. Okay, and the pricing was a little tighter. In other words, the difference between these two guys is a little bit, you know, closer than that of Yadong and Arce. So I feel as though that you know, the Son Yadong fight is the one that's on the outside looking in here. Felicia Spencer, Leah Letson. There's just nothing here. I mean, you have a 3-to-1 favorite who's priced as such, right? It's not as if you're getting any win equity here. And you have a pretty poor inside the distance prop. You have fight goes in decision minus 200. You have neither one of them being a great grappler. So, more than, I would say, 60. So this is what happened. So Felicia Spencer, let's drill this down. Let's say, what are the odds that Felicia Spencer wins by inside the distance? Well, it's +3-1 by submission. Here it is. Spencer wins inside the distance. It's +225. So only 30% of the time she's going to win inside the distance, and you're 9,200. So it's a lot to pay for the 30% of the time that it's going to get in there. So I think Felicia Spencer is probably not the greatest play in the world. Leah Letson, I mean, it's priced right. You know what I mean? If she wins, you're going to be happy you have her. You don't even need a good win condition with her, but she's only going to win like 20%, 25% of the time, 20% of the time. I actually don't think it's not the worst punt in the world, I guess. But you're really just gambling with that one. I would much rather you go to one of those key fights with a better win condition than just, than play Letson. But I do think it's a decent punt, but I would much rather play someone like Alvarez who knows the win condition, as an underdog like that. All right, Ben Rothwell versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. So let's take a look. First, these are kind of like light heavyweights. Ben Rothwell's been around 100 years. Marcos Rogerio is supposedly pretty bad, but whatever it is, let's take a look at the pricing first of all. You have Ben Rothwell, who is 8,600. Rodrigo de Lima is 80. I guess that'd be 7,600. So pretty good. Not the best, but pretty good. Not as good as the 8,200, 8,000. Better than the 8,800, 7,400, etc. So if you can get a good inside the distance prop on this one, you might want to take a look. So let's just take a look at this. Yeah, so this is actually pretty good. This is a -200 to not go to a decision. So it's about a 65% chance that this finishes. Okay. So if this finishes, this pricing is pretty good. You know what I mean? Like you could take Rothwell or Rogerio here and be well within your rights. And like you'll look at this, Rothwell wins by KO, TKO is +250. Rothwell is +400. So Rothwell was inside the distance. He's +150. For Rothwell to win inside the distance, that's not bad. That means a full 40% of the time he's finishing at 8,700. That's pretty good, man. I have to say. And you even get this. You get Rogerio wins inside the distance. This happens 33% of the time. If he finishes inside the distance at 7,600, I mean, that's gonna get there, man. I mean, it is. I mean, that's at 7,600, a finish at 7,600 is really strong, and 33% of the time, I'm in there, man. So I think this fight is one to keep. Okay, and then in the main event, you have Max Holloway versus Jan Rodriguez. You have Max Holloway is a 7-1 favorite. So, and he's priced, unfortunately, he's priced as if he's only a 3-1 favorite. Just because the way that DraftKings priced up, they don't allow you to have like 11,000 or something like that. And the most they really ever give is like 9,500, 9,600. And given that he's a 7-1 favorite, this is actually a really, really good price for him at 9,500. I mean, the combination of win odds, because the volume that he can lay on, his finishing upside and all that stuff. I mean, it actually is a really, really good price. So I would not play any Yair Rodriguez, and I would probably lock in Max Holloway. I mean, it's just the numbers are just too strong. Well, should I lock him in? Well, let's think about that a second. So we identify these other fights, that you could target, and you can get like 6 guys to finish out of those other fights somehow, then that's going to probably be enough to not need Max Holloway. But that's a lot to ask to get exactly right on the 6 finishes and other 6 fights. And I didn't even identify 6 fights. I went to the Rothwell, the Moises, Calvillo was a good one, Chaos, and the 5th one was the Kennedy. So there are only 5 fights I like anyway. So I do think you're probably going to need to get Holloway. Now, just for the hell of it, let's take a look at Rodriguez here, what his odds are to finish. Rodriguez to finish is, can't quite tell, but I mean, he's 40 to 1, 30 to 1, 20 to 25 to 1 to win around one, you know. So it's poor. I mean, that his price tag should be like 3K. I mean, given all these different metrics. In a weird way, I think he's probably the worst price on the card, given everything else. Anyway, so I do like Holloway there. And that's pretty much it. I really feel as though that this was this breakdown was hopefully this was helpful, because if this one wasn't helpful, I don't know what else to offer you, because this is exactly the way you're supposed to analyze these types of fights. The only thing that what's missing from this card is that kind of like plug and play value play, where one guy gets kind of like slid in there. But aside from that, everything else is just very, very pure with respect to how to analyze DFS in MMA situations. Okay, that will do it. Good luck. Remember, it's an early post time, 1 o'clock, I think, on Saturday. And good luck to everybody.